If you're comfortable, you're not growing. You need to be a little less comfortable and move yourself into positions where you are stretching and be a little less comfortable and get comfortable about being less comfortable. Waterfest is a catalyst for economic development. It's supposed to bring people into town that might not otherwise have a reason to come here, to give them an opportunity to meet people, to develop a relationship with those people. And you're dealing with people that are performing and not performing, and you're managing a budget, which happened way before I was involved in any of that at work in my career. It built my skill sets for managing people and resources at a very early age, which helped me prepare myself for opportunities as they came along in my career.
Welcome everybody. We're going to start kicking this thing off. I wanted to first give a big thank you to the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce for helping us put this together, as well as helping us corral Mike Dempsey in the house today. So big round of applause if we can for Mike. Thank you. You can get him louder than that. Right? No. Yeah, it's really a treat to have you in here, Mike. And for those of you that are new, or this is the first time you're tuning into this in the stream, or you're coming in person, we put together a show called the Local Legends Series. We're trying to find people that have some great business leadership, entrepreneurial roots, and ties back to the Oshkosh or greater Fox Valley area that are willing to kind of share some of these different business tips for entrepreneurs, small business owners, or other business leaders in the community. This was an idea that John had approached me with, and we were able to put this together, and we are more than happy to have Mike on as our guest today. Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, tell us a little bit, I guess, about yourself. Where did it start for you when you were just a wee lad?
I was born in Oshkosh, and I was eight of nine kids, and had the benefit of observing my older brothers and sisters get in and out of trouble, so I had that kind of education. And at the time, we lived in the town of Algoma, and we had a country school named Boyd's School, and we had 3 rooms, 9 grades, 3 teachers. And so when you were in that room, you had the opportunity to observe the other classes working, or the teacher working with the other classes, and working with the upper graders. So again, I got a chance to observe a lot of what was going on ahead of me, so I could look forward to that.
What were you like as a student?
Not very good.
Really?
I was a student of sociology.
A plus in social,
Yeah, I always tell my kids I made straight A's in school, but my B's were a little crooked.
Good enough to get about a B, or a C, or whatever it happened to be. No, that's really interesting. So eventually you really built a successful career as a banker and a leader in banking, but where did that idea start for you? When did you get interested in it?
Well, I was pretty involved in athletics throughout school, and football, wrestling, that kind of thing. And when I got out of high school, I was in college, and I went back to the high school and ended up coaching at high school wrestling and refereeing high school wrestling. And one of the kids there was the son of a banker, and was observing me handling kids and doing good things, and gave me a shot at banking.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about being a coach, because I think that's a skill that applies to lots of different aspects of
Well,
life.
it helps if you know the craft, and I had pretty good understanding of what was going on in wrestling, but you're as much as a big brother or a counselor as you are anything. And so dealing with high school kids in particular, they're going through so many changes and challenges. So a lot of one-on-ones with high school kids that are having growing pains, and relationships with their parents or their families or their girls and what have you, and all the challenges that go through kids. So you end up with really good, close relationships with the kids you're coaching. So it worked out well for me, and it was a growth opportunity for me as well.
So you get started in banking. How did you start to grow your career? Because I know a lot of folks in here, even if they're not entrepreneurs, they might have some type of ambition, or they're trying to grow, and you've done that at all different levels. You started out from the bottom kind of and worked your way into this. How did that work?
Well, I ended up, first of all, I was kind of interested in, trying to be an investment guy. And so when I was offered an opportunity to join the bank, it was in the trust department, and I got to buy and sell some stocks and do some investments and work in their accounting area. And then I had some relationships. And then some turnover happened in the organization, and there was an opportunity for me to stretch myself. And so they put me in a position where I was way over my head. And I probably, most of my career in my growth areas, I was consistently over my head. And I was battling to catch up and get better and be functional. And then the next step would be get over your head into something else. But working hard, long hours, being coachable, and understanding what that's like to take instructions and deliver whatever was asked of me.
I think that's an interesting point you brought up. So you took positions that you felt like you were in over your head with, and there's a lot of debate, where people give advice that's fake it till you make it, and then there's other people that say, no, you really want to know what you're doing before you get into something. And it seems like when you're in over your head, there is a little bit of a balance in there, right? You want to be able to challenge yourself or have confidence that you'll be able to go forward. What do you think?
Well, you have to have a patient manager and boss. You have to have somebody that's willing to invest in you and your development. And I had the opportunity to work for a number of people that really supported me through that process and gave me all the time I needed to continue to develop. And I observed that, and that helped me when I was on the other side, helping other people stretch themselves.
Yeah, do you think that that's a good idea for people to try to what made you want to try to challenge yourself? Are you born with it, or do you find it, or where does that come from?
Well, at first it's a little nerve-wracking, but once you get used to being out there on that ledge, you get comfortable. No, what I try to do is instill. What I try to tell folks or people that are listening would be to,
reflecting on your career.
Well, an entrepreneur needs a good banker.
Yeah.
You start there. The entrepreneurs have to really know their craft and really be able to take a punch and be resilient and have that tenacity that gets them through failure. There's always, you're going to fail and fail and fail, and then you succeed, and then you keep failing to the next level, and as businesses grow. So entrepreneurs really need to be able to suck it up, dust themselves off, and come back at it. They have to be all in. They have to be prepared to do anything and everything to continue to make it successful, to make sure they're making their payrolls, and take care of their obligations, and take advice and put it to work, and continue to reinvest in solving for success.
Can you tell, looking, when you first meet with some of these different entrepreneurs or business owners, can you tell early on in the process which ones you think have it and which ones don't, and which characteristics can you figure this out with a short period of time?
Well, one test is if they're more interested in their paycheck than their employee's paycheck, that's a sign that they're probably going to have some difficulty when they have difficulty. They won't know who to pay first, which is not themselves. And so you really have to be taking care of your employees and all of your obligations and work through it. So, and they have to be prepared. They have to have a goal. They have to be really passionate about what they're doing and have some capabilities about what it takes to make a payroll and sustain that. And that's a starting point.
Yeah. So when you're looking through, one thing we do, we get ideas in here all the time, all sorts of different industries and things like that. And they're putting together their business plans. And the reason usually you're putting together your business plan is because it's going to go in front of a banker or a grant committee or a board. And you've probably seen hundreds of these, thousands of these over your lifetime. What's the winning ones look like? Or when do you feel a warm fuzzy after reading through some of these different proposals or grants or business plans?
Well, I want to locate the motivation. What's this all about? Why? The plan is sort of the how, and but what's behind it? So because the how and the plan is going to evolve or change. Sometimes it takes a hard left, and sometimes it goes a little too fast, and sometimes it goes a little too slow. But the motivation's key in order for them to have the resilience to be able to pivot and make adjustments. And so my first step is to understand, why is this happening? What's this all about? And then I'll test the plan to see if it makes some sense, and if they have enough capital, and to take. I'll go through the what ifs and their assumptions, and try to see if they're valid, and to discuss what could change in those assumptions, and what can they control and what they can't control, and do they have the ability to manage through something they can't control, and take it from there.
Yeah. I think one thing that I think is really interesting about your story is you were involved in kind of the Waterfest very early on beginnings. Tell me how that started, how those ideas came about, and your involvement in the entire process.
Well, Waterfest was started by the chamber, and it was started, and the motivation there was to create a sense of positive self-esteem for the community, which had kind of lost its luster during the Rust Belt days of the early 1980s and mid-80s, where unemployment was well into the double digits, and it was real. And it was probably a bloodier time for this market than, and I'm talking about the Midwest in general, from standpoint of job creation, than it ever has been, even through the Great Recession and this last pandemic issue. So that was really brutal for the communities in Wisconsin. We lost a lot of jobs to other states. We lost them to overseas, and a lot of that stuff we're trying to get back, but we're still recovering from that time as a country. So when we were out trying to recruit businesses to the community, the chamber was having trouble when they'd bring somebody in that might be interested. They'd visit with the community itself and going, what's cool about this place? What do you like? And everybody was kind of Eeyore, the glass was half empty. They were tired. They were beaten down. They had lost their self-esteem and really lost track of why they selected this place to live. And so the chamber and the city fathers got together, and they said, well, what can we do? And they came up with a new slogan, Oshkosh on the water, and they painted it on the water towers, and they made logos, and the county got into the wave of the future, and we said, well, we got to accentuate the waterways, and how do we promote that, create awareness, and they came up with the world's largest free festival. It was a weekend event that lost tremendous amounts of money, but that's for promotion. And everybody potted in for 2 or 3 years as a weekend event, and they got the message out. People began to understand that we're all about the quality of life here, and that involves reminding people about the natural resources, our educational system, our school system, the hospitals, and just the fact that it's a great place to live, work, and play, if you can work. Yeah. So they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and then they came to. At the time, I was in the JCs with a number of other people, some of whom may be in the room, and so some of them came. They tried to offload it on us and see what we could do with it. So as the JCs, and we'd put on a couple of other events that were festival oriented, and we kind of went, okay, if you guys help us with the sponsorships, we'll take it on and see what we can do with it. So we had to move it from the skill center down, and we had to find a place for it because we couldn't put it on the skill center. They were tired of it too. So we said, well, where can we put it? Well, we thought, well, let's put it right in the middle of where the opportunity is for improvement here, and that is right downtown, right bullseye on what needed some attention, and to draw attention to the opportunities down there. The hotel and the convention center was new at the time. The Grand had just gone through a revitalization, and we said, well, we can somehow put those 2 stages to work, and then we put up another 4 or 5 stages in tents, and we had a carnival and laser light shows and water ski shows and Venetian parades.
Multiple sites were going on.
We had it all downtown. We tried to get it going and go really big with it. And that lasted for 3 years with the JCs, and we made money 1 year, lost our butts the next, and made just enough to break even the 3rd year. And the JC said, we really can't run this thing anymore. So then Chuck Hurdle, a local attorney, and I got together with Rob and John, and we said, well, we can take this back, and let's make it Rob had just started a weekly concert series, and we observed it on Thursdays, and we were looking at it going, and it was a little free thing with a guitarist sitting out on the lawn, and we kind of went, well, I think we can take that to another level. And so we didn't want to destroy all the value we had in the sponsorship momentum. And so we said, well, let's take Rob's, let's hijack Rob's Thursday night deal, and let's make it Waterfest, but put it into a weekly concert series so we're not burning out our volunteers. Fans could come one or more times versus dedicating one weekend. We get a better deal on some of the touring artists, and we could, maybe sell wristbands for people that might have a cocktail, or not a cocktail, but a beer, and kind of make it underwritten. So we moved into that direction, and it was quite successful. And with the number of bands that we had that are, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that were playing on a trailer or a showmobile is incredible. I mean, so we had
What were some of those early bands that you...
we had the Guess Who, Cheap Trick, Eric Burdon and the Animals. We had some really great bands that were... we had Three Dog Night. I mean, all these bands were playing on a showmobile. And and we were charging $2 for a beer wristband, and
this made money early on?
Well, sort of. And we did pretty good for the, we did okay. We're still in business, so let me put it that way. Yeah. Yeah, it did. It was actually, we were actually building up a nest egg until we got into the amphitheater scene. And that became a higher budget proposition because of the occupancy costs and the production and everything else. So the nature, the scale of the operation changed drastically when we went into the amphitheater.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about how you thinking through this, you've got this kind of a banker mindset, and then you've got this entrepreneurial kind of activity. Where did you find this balance of intuition versus does the math work? And how did you kind of navigate that with a team of a lot of folks that are a lot more conservative in a lot of projections and things like that?
Well, we went based on history. We kept on building. And what Waterfest would do is unlike a lot of events, we reinvested our money into the event itself. So whatever we had a plus year, we reinvested into a better budget for the next year. And it threw out enough cash flow to handle that budget. And then, for the most part, we kept reinvesting it, and we prepared a model that said if we don't get rain, we'll do okay. And then we had a model that said if we get rain 2.5 nights, we'll be okay. And it's a tricky business. Any kind of outdoor event is subject to weather. We had a pretty good finger on what the demand was, and we knew from history we'd bring back 3 bands that had been there before, 3 money makers that were local, and then 3 new bands. And so we'd come up with a formula where we'd kind of risk the demand on 3 different bands that might be something new. And that was kind of our philosophy going through. So it sounds like it's a little ambitious, but it was pretty conservative in its approach to getting the results we needed in order to contain or to actually grow the festivity.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting hearing a promoter's perspective on that, because that's kind of a weird science in itself. Is how do you if you build it, they will come, right? How did you get anyone there? How did you get the momentum?
Well, what was pretty exciting for us, and the challenge for us was we were going to put this on this little postage stamp park, which was tiny, and it was in the middle of a very blighted area. There was no river walk. The downtown was half empty. It was an industrial wasteland, brownfields up and down the river, and so what we were challenging the community was we were trying to establish the fact that if you do something worthwhile in an area, our downtown, people will come. If you have value, people will come. The sponsorships allowed us to deliver value that didn't exist anywhere else, and that's still true today, where the price of admission is a third of what you might have to pay at the Pabst or someplace else to see a live event like that. So the secret recipe for us is providing value in the price of admission, value in the concessions, which is no more than what it cost if you went down to a bar or something like that. We don't overcharge for any of that. We never did. We made it very easy and affordable. We wanted anybody to be able to afford to come in in some fashion. Very inclusive attitude toward it. And so when people decided that was a cool thing and it was a thing to do, we created an awareness from the community standpoint, private-public partnerships, that maybe there's something maybe there's a pulse down here, we can do some more, which began the discussions about the amphitheater and the Riverwalk and some of those other things started to fit in. So,
what years did those start to come into play? The amphitheater and
early 2000s, 2005, 6, something like that.
Yeah.
And but we had a sponsor event that helped recognize that and brought people together in the convention center with the concept of the amphitheater, and we had Michael McDonald in there and the American English, and we brought in the wallets and got him in there to continue to get excited about the possibilities, and you bring them down there and you show them the riverfront and what it looked like at that time versus what it could look like. And all of a sudden, the Oshkosh Foundation, other people started to say, "Wait, let's get behind this thing and take advantage of this momentum and do something with it." So that worked out very well. And then from there, it took a couple of years to get it to to completion. But there were some very brave people, C.R. Meyer and the Leach family and Ted Leahy and a lot of people that got involved with this thing to help get behind it, to actually reward all the volunteers and the chamber for all the hard work they did, putting this thing in a position where it could be leveraged into something special.
What was it like dealing with some of these, A-list musicians just over the years? I mean, that's got to be stories in itself, right?
Well, most of them have like careers that had done this and been down there.
You get them for a discount over here.
So they were in the early '90s. They were happy to have someplace to play. That was before the casinos started to pop up and really pay a lot of money. So we had a lot of bands that we could, they were just playing for their supper almost, and they were, great bands, and they were very happy to have someplace to play, and they understood what they were getting into. Some did, some didn't. Some that didn't were going, what am I doing here? We had first time we had Starship, and they stood on the stage and they looked out at the municipal bathroom that was out there as kind of a teepee roof, and they said, "That's the first time we played in a venue with a Starship in the middle of it." we had Lou Graham was with Foreigner, was a founding member of Foreigner, and he was just restarting his solo career after a bloody legal mess with Foreigner, and he didn't have his promotion put together. And I was talking to his agent, where's the pictures, where's the photos, and the local paper was going, we need this stuff in order to put your ad in, and da-da-da. And so they pulled an old file picture of Foreigner and put it in the paper. And Lou Graham came in the night before, so in the morning he's sitting in coffee down at the hotel going, oh no, I'm going to get sued. And so he was wild, and I caught a really good ear job from him. Paul Rogers, who's the founding member of Free and Bad Company, he was in town, and one of the things some of these guys require special treatment, and so he came in with his trophy girlfriend, and he needed a limo, not just a van, a limo from the hotel to the convention center. And he had slippery boots on or something, some kind of cowboy boots with lifts in them because he was short. And he did not want to walk on anything but carpets because he was afraid he was going to fall down. And so in order to get him to the side of the convention center, we had to take the limo from the front of the hotel across the bridge, turn him around, and come back over the bridge and drop him off by the carpet coming into the thing. So sometimes you have those kind of things. But
I've heard, I don't know if this is true, you tell me, that musicians or their teams and their managers will make really ridiculous requests to test the attention to detail of the promoter. Is that true?
Yeah, and the riders, they'll put oddball stuff in there, like no red M&Ms or...
So you get a whole thing of M&Ms with no red ones.
Yeah, well, early on we took it literally, but it was really just to see if you read the darn thing.
Oh. So you would actually have...
Yeah, so you'd see something obscure in there and you go, what is this? They just wanted to know you were paying attention. But that is true. They'll do it. That's standard operating procedure for a lot of bands.
Do other industries do that you've come across in the past? Putting bizarre things in contracts?
Some of the attorneys in the crowd would know that they put those things in there, and we have to find them.
Is that true? No, that's really interesting. I think it's really a fascinating, hearing how that came together and then over the years and it becoming such a staple in our community. Waterfest is just a household name, at least in this area of the state. And to know that just started as an idea, with a team of people that were able to put that together is really interesting.
It's recognized throughout the country, but especially by the talent folks. We used to have to call people. Now they call us.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're looking for venues such as this and looking for people that know how to put it on. We do not chintz on any of the production or any of the needs, anything they really require. Carlene Grabner is really good at finding out what they need in their rider and what they don't need. And sometimes there's a lot of stuff in there that's a waste of money. And so we'll talk to them on a practical level. And once we get the show advanced, we hone down the riders to get it to a level of what they need versus what they would waste. But they'll get whatever they absolutely need to put the show on and make it a good show. The crowd situation at Waterfest is really good. A lot of it, from a fan experience standpoint, is they get to come up really close. They can high five a musician. A musician can do that with them. It's a club atmosphere, so there's a lot of energy out of the fan base for the performers. Robbie Krieger from The Doors was here, and he was busy. He was on a tour and he was doing a lot of city wineries, and he goes, "That is a boring situation." He was looking forward to playing Waterfest where the fans were up on their feet and cheering and screaming, and even though it was raining, that show was dynamite. It rained all the way through it. The piano player had to lift up his piano and empty the water out of it and set it back down. It was unbelievable. But he was emphasizing the reward it is for an entertainer to have a crowd that gives that kind of response. And because it's set up in a way that you don't have a bunch of VIP chairs that aren't used in front, we have a club atmosphere where the fans that want to be in front are in front. And the ones that are a little bit more voyeurs, they can sit on their chairs and enjoy the music from the grass. So it's an environment where performers that like to get crowd response get it.
What are the different types of different types of tastes of the performers that you've kind of seen? I mean, like there are probably some that need that crowd response. Are there some that don't care? Or what are the different personalities you run into over the years?
Some bands you are just mailing it in, they're doing their paycheck thing. Other ones really want to develop their fan base. And right now, with the music industry the way it is, they're not making a lot of money on record royalties or any kind of residuals. They have to really go out and tour and play for their fees. So they're building fan bases wherever they go, and they're very, very careful about their fan bases. And they're mining any market they get into to develop more fan bases. So they take it very seriously as a part of their business plan to make sure they're developing new fans that are regenerating interest in their music as they move through these markets, because a lot of their other fan bases moving on, and so they've got to continue to earn new fans as they go out and tour. So for the most part, they're in it for real. They want a good fan experience, and they want to deliver on it, and they're very respectful of the fans.
What's like the vision for the future of what you want, or what the team kind of wants Waterfest to really turn into down the road?
Well, Waterfest is a catalyst for Waterfest is a catalyst for economic development. It's supposed to bring people into town that might not otherwise have a reason to come here, to give them an opportunity to meet people, to develop a relationship with those people, to think about what the possibilities are about investing or living here. And it's not just about Waterfest. It's about introducing people to the market. So about a third of our to the extent that they find this, they find, simply the commercial aspects of it, restaurants and bars and that kind of thing. That's cool, but they also look at the downtown and look at other investments. They go, this has a pulse. This has opportunity written all over it. So it's part of the profile of the community to continue to act, to continue to give it life. What Waterfest is we were asked, there's some other not-for-profit was interested in doing something else on a Thursday night, and we're concerned about how we'd respond to it. We embrace anything and everything that goes on any time of the week when people are investing their resources and time and talents into creating opportunities for people to enjoy themselves in our community, and to bring people to our community and to create a higher level of awareness. So we're all about helping people, showing people how to get this done, and if they've got other ideas, we're happy to step aside. We're very helpful. We've helped a couple of other not-for-profits with our organization and our production group, and introducing people that want to bring some shows to town to figure out what resources are available to pull off what they're trying to do. And the Chamber's been extremely open about that, and we're here to help.
Yeah. Is the lineup set now for this year? Or
it is, unless something comes up that's that we can't refuse.
Yeah. Who are some of the big names we got coming in this year?
Well, we worked for almost a decade trying to get the Beach Boys in.
Yeah.
So they're coming. That's great.
And I've heard they have the most hits of any band over the history of rock and roll. Is one of the stats that I've heard. And you think about it, every song's a Beach Boys song.
They're doing they're doing 2 75-minute sets of all hits.
Oh, really?
Which is, they said, no opening act. We don't want anybody tiring out. So they're going to do 75-minute sets starting at 6:30, and then another one 30 minutes later after that's done. And I had a chance to witness it up at Catfish Days a couple of years ago with one of our guests out here, their set was incredible. The sound was impeccable. It's a Beach Boys show. It's really good. It was really, really good. So they're coming. That's great. We added something that's I wouldn't call it edgier, but it's more current. Government Mules coming in. They're a jam band that is a top-notch festival draw throughout the country and throughout Europe. Trombone Shorty, who just closed the Jazz Fest in New Orleans, is going to be on that bill with them for a double bill in August. That'll be awesome. We've got some 80s rockers like Mike Campbell from the Tom Petty's band's got an all-star band that's coming in. That's on the 21st. Got the lead singer from Boston. He's going to have his show. He was a big hit last year. I can't promote it with the word Boston in it, but we can say he was, whatever. But his show is legit.
The legal checks out,
Yeah. But he put on a real crowd-pleasing show, and so everybody that went to that show last year will be back. Plus, that'll be good. We got Night Ranger coming back. There are a lot of hits. Tommy James and the Shondells.
Yeah. I was probably born because of Tommy James, I think. Some people get it. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Yeah. Right.
We're very pleased to have Hairball back. They're a riot, and John got the pyrotechnics approved with the city, and we're happy with the city. And we just had a little time out here. The city's been extremely helpful. The police department, the parks department. They're very welcoming. They help us solve for any concerns we might have. They help us watch on the weather and other crowd concerns. And so the city's been awesome. So we couldn't do it without the city. One other comment while I'm on this track is that it takes about 120 people to volunteer at Waterfest on any given night. We're always looking for help on that. So if you're interested, contact John at the Chamber. And everybody has a good time now. The volunteer groups raise money for their own concerns, and they have a lot of fun. They use it as a smoker for creating awareness for their purposes, and so it's a little bit of a give back. And then we work with a number of people that really make it happen. The volunteers and the donors and the sponsors are really what put the value into Waterfest. At least a third of every ticket is subsidized by their efforts and funds. We got Vic Ferrari for the last hurrah.
This is their farewell tour.
Farewell tour, and they and Road Trip, and Road Trip's also on the bill this summer. really helped us financially in the 90s. They were, you know, they were partners. They would bring in their own production and put on their own shows. They were very affordable and very interested in the success of the the concept. It was another place for locals to play. Part of our mission is to give visibility to our Wisconsin-based artists as part of the package, and our touring artists to have a place to play and introduce themselves to new fans, and vice versa. What else do we have? We have a rockin' band at the end of the season called Dirty Honey, which is they're an up and coming band, kind of a Led Zeppelin thing that we're out on tour with the Black Crowes. So that'll be edgier and they'll rock.
It's like a Led Zeppelin genre.
Something like that, mixed in with a little AC/DC. I mean, they really rock. First thing they asked when they're taking a look at the opportunity to play here is, what's the decibel limit?
That's a good sign. Yeah. Well, I wanted to give a moment for folks out here that might have questions to be able to ask them of you. You can say yes or no if you want to ask them. Al, can we or Wyatt, can we get these guys a microphone if they have any questions? For Mike, just about entrepreneurship, business, kind of the community, and some of his involvement or backstory. That's the closest we got to questions.
I don't have much to say about entrepreneurship. Can you define what you consider a successful entrepreneur?
Well, one that's in business and pays their bank bills and their attorney's fees.
That's an excellent point. The other question is, what was the biggest turnout or most?
At Waterfest?
Yeah. How many people?
We still think it's the Bodines, 2006, about 8,100. And after that, there's a few others that were close to 8, and in the high 7s, including REO Speedwagon and Doobie Brothers, Pat Benatar, to name a few.
And the capacity is?
7,500. But it was determined after we had 8,100.
We don't know how many this fits.
So
yet.
we were okay until they put a capacity thing, and then we're fine.
And what's the most you lost in one event due to John canceled Alice Cooper, I think?
No, the storm. The storm. Well, we can't really tell you his fee because that's not. But it was 6 figures. And that what you're also losing there is all your advertising and production and all the costs that go into bringing somebody to town, transportation, hotels. I mean, they were here to play. It was all set up, and it was a washout. He did go play golf at the country club. Little green outfit.
Do the artists kind of stick around ever and do stuff in the community?
Well, good question. Couple times, Alice Cooper was here for a few days, and he did his radio show from the hotel. He taped a few times for that show, and then Michael McDonald was here for over a week, and he was preparing to do his Motown tour. We got him out on the boat and stuff. His wife went and does the gas. She's great, good people. But that's when he was he went on a very successful Motown tour, which had two releases and went on for 2 years. But it started in Oshkosh.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on the podcast. No.
Is there such a thing as cancellation insurance? I know there are for conventions and other events, and then with the pandemic.
Yeah, well, we've looked at that. We self-insure. We self-insure because we have a variety of evenings. So we have like 9 evenings, and we kind of budget around trying to figure out how to survive if one of them is weather impaired or a washout. Sometimes it works for us, sometimes it doesn't. But the insurance is very specific. It's like from this hour to that hour, and there's too much detail in that insurance to figure out how to make it pay. So we just sort of self-insure.
That's a good question.
Good question, though.
Yeah.
We get it a lot.
Could you explain a little bit about how you book somebody, how much prepayment there is, when you pay, how much of the fee, and if because we're such a good event, do we have credibility? We don't have to do all those prepayments.
Deposits, some bands need deposits because they have to cash flow their business, so we appreciate that. Some want it because of security in case we don't have good credit. Most of the touring acts ask for a deposit 30 days in advance, but that's probably on a cash flow. And by that time, they're coming, and so it's all in. So they're looking at paying for their plane tickets and some other rehearsal time and that kind of thing. So. We went from having to make a deposit when we started with the contract, which might have been 6 or 9 months in advance, to right now it's typically 30 days for national touring artists for a deposit, and it's usually 50%. Most of the other bands, we pay them day of show. Some industry, rock is like that. Country, sometimes you pay day of show.
How much are we talking about to book some of these different artists? Are you allowed to kind of give ranges at all? I mean,
well, our tax returns are public, so I mean, our artist fees this year will run somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000, and we're really good at getting good prices on that stuff. So $400,000 and $500,000, and so from a cash flow standpoint, we usually need 100 to 150 to cash flow just the deposits alone.
How do you price an artist to see if they're a good deal versus how many people you think they can pull in? How does the math work on that?
Well, we try to if you're in a hard theater with a certain amount of seats, the rule of thumb is you need to budget at 60% capacity. So you need to break even at 60% capacity on all expenses, including artist fees, insurance, promotion, all that other stuff. For us, it's not really a capacity thing. We kind of look at, well, what do our season ticket holders run? What do our sponsors handle? And we have a pretty good idea on that. And then we look at what do we think we can sell for VIP and what would be the general admission, and then we back into some pricing. A lot of the artists want to know exactly what we're pricing because they don't want to leave a lot on the table. So they'll kind of go, what's the capacity? And then you have to deliver a kind of a budget to them to see what their value is. So they look at that, and then at the end of some of the artists want a weekly update of how they're doing.
Because they're trying to price their model.
They want to know that the show's going to be okay, and then a lot of places they pay a variable. They get paid on a variable ticket base plus performance. But for us, we look at going, well, we're going to get 500 of these sold based upon that, and for the Beach Boys, we think we'll do 1,000 VIPs at X dollars, and then we think we'll do 2,000 in general admission at X dollars. Anything over that will help us pay for a loser somewhere else down the road. But so we do take a look at it. We budget out each show in that fashion. We know how much our sound and lights and production are. Sometimes the hotel rooms are a little steep because some of those bands are bringing 24 people in for 2 nights. And then we have ground transportation we have to organize and all that. So some of the stuff can creep up on you when you start getting into the show and advancing it. And we try to minimize that.
Sure. Yeah.
Have you ever tallied up how many other bankers in this town came through your tutelage? Because I personally haven't ever met one that wasn't connected to you at one point or another.
Well, I'm responsible. So, and it's not just in town, it's up and down the valley. So I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of really good bankers and work at a lot of really good banks. And 3 in fact. This is my 45th year in banking, and I'm finishing up my 12 years at Bank First this summer. So so during that time, I've had the pleasure to either manage, supervise, hire, develop. Sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes I don't work out and they leave. We have one out in the back over there who's leaving. Where do you go? He's going out to greener pastures. But we prepared him for that. And so we feel really good about creating good bankers, skilled bankers, good community citizens, people that understand how to be responsible to the community as well as their organization and their employees. So they're out there and for the most part, I get good reports.
Maybe not a common question, but a comment on what you've done to bring this community together is unbelievable. Most people don't realize what we have here, and you've done a lot to bring it together, and for that I think we owe you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. One thing about Waterfest, when you go down there, you reunite with people you haven't seen for a while. And there is a huge sense of community down there, and part of the value of Waterfest is to get people back together that maybe they don't go to the same grocery store, or they don't work in the same circles or live in the same circles, but down at Waterfest, everything kind of works itself together, and you can't believe the conversations you end up in with the people you haven't seen for 10 years. And so that's part of the charm of the event.
Any other questions we got? Yeah. You got to do it.
I'm fine. 45 years in the business, 68 years in the community. Give me the lowest time you've ever seen this community and the highest time you've ever seen this community.
Wow. Well, I think the lowest time was in the early 80s when we were going through the Rust Belt trauma. Everybody was, but back then change wasn't people weren't used to change. I mean, it would move slowly. So it was the fact that things were happening so rapidly and people weren't able to respond to it, or didn't respond properly, or couldn't, or didn't have the wherewithal, or didn't have the vision or experience to, made it. People didn't have good answers. They didn't know how to. People really lost their livelihoods, and it was very, very difficult. There were a lot of family-owned, closely held businesses that didn't make it, and wealth was destroyed. And you need wealth and equity in order to reinvest, and some of that stuff was just demolished. And as far as being up, I think there's no reason to not think we're up now. I think things are great. I think the city looks really good. The riverfront's awesome. You can find a job if you want one. You can get educated. There's a lot of help out there. People are very interested in your well-being. The health system's really good. Education's working itself into really good shape. There's alternative education. So I think if you kind of look at your opportunities and blessings, now's a good time.
Well, 45 years in the banking industry, and you're leaving soon. You wake up, you send me text messages at 4:30 in the morning and emails at 4:30 in the morning. What are you going to miss most once you wind down?
Torturing you. We should ask him the same question.
Yeah.
I've been in transition for 45 years. So no, I'm really, really pleased with being able to leave things in good shape and people in places where they can have great careers, and the people and businesses that I've had the pleasure of working with, or through others with, are in really, really good hands. So I won't miss that aspect of it, because I think it's fantastic. And so I'll just have to reinvent myself a little bit and keep myself occupied.
So what's some parting advice you might have for entrepreneurs, small business owners, or business leaders in the community that comes from the heart from Mike Dempsey?
Well, there's a couple of odd things. Sometimes people want to move. They get structurally disadvantages at their place of work, and they go, I'm going to go into business. And in some cases, they don't know what they're getting into. In most cases, they're used to a lifestyle of 9 to 5, 8 to 5,
every 2 weeks,
weekends, that kind of thing. And so when you're going to run a business, it's 24/7 all the time. And again, your employees come first, and your customers, and then you're last. And so that's a brutal awakening. And it sounds like, I can do that, but people just aren't emotionally and behaviorally, prepared for that. So that you have to really do some soul searching before you dive into that. The other thing is you need to be available. So your health is extremely important. If you're an entrepreneur, everybody's relying on you, and you're also doing a lot of other jobs, and as you're growing your business and being able to hire people that can do some other things for you. But if you're not available, if you're not healthy, if you're not taking care of your health, you're putting your business at risk. So being available for all your stakeholders is extremely important, and making good relationships, taking care of your employees is extremely important, and respecting your competition and learning from them, and taking your lumps and being a better entrepreneur for it.
Yeah. Well, do we have any final questions here? We got one from Rob in the back, and then I think that's probably all we have time for today.
Oh,
we got
yeah,
two
there's
more.
one other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, volunteer-wise, just kind of, you had Waterfest, but you volunteered in countless organizations. Kind of what drove that passion behind being so engaged in the community for many years from a volunteer perspective? And then, besides growing up here, what was that passion behind Oshkosh, your passion behind Oshkosh, so intense, and, obviously everybody can feel that. If you can just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I had really good employers. I did start out in scouting with other people in the audience here, and that was very helpful. And you learned a lot about being organized and responsible and a good citizen, and all the good points of that go into scouting. But as I got employed, I had employers that were trying to get me involved, and they introduced me to the JCs, and they introduced me to the YMCA, and then got me on the board at the Y. I was in my 20s, and the Y was cool because they wanted younger people in the mix, and I fit the profile, and I hopped in there, and over the years I got familiar with what the possibilities were for myself and the community in that area. But when you're like, the JCs were particularly important to me because you were running budgets. And in some of these other organizations, you're organizing people, volunteers that don't get paid, but you got to motivate them. You got to figure out who's doing what and getting it done. And you're dealing with people that are performing and not performing, and you're managing a budget, which happened way before I was involved in any of that at work in my career. So it gave me a little bit it built my skill sets for managing people and resources at a very early age, which helped me prepare myself for opportunities as they came along in my career. So it was very, very, very helpful. I didn't know it at the time, but it worked out great. And as far as Oshkosh is concerned, I know a lot of people here. It's enjoyable to work with them and volunteer with them and work on opportunities, and it's fun. It's really fun and rewarding to see things get done, and why not here?
Do you see any big opportunities still out there for Oshkosh, and what are they?
Well, we've got a lot going on downtown here that's going to be awesome. We've got a lot of industrial park that can get filled out. So there's opportunities here in Winnebago County and Oshkosh for sure. We have to continue to grow our resources to take advantage of that, whether that's human or technology or other investments. And so it has a great deal of opportunity. You'd asked earlier about the importance of entrepreneurship, and it's really an organic opportunity for for startups and entrepreneur. But businesses themselves are entrepreneurial. They pivot when opportunities have to create, when they have to, because situations dictate it. And so even established businesses, big and small, have to be entrepreneurially nimble as change is really, really accelerating.
Yeah.
There was
one more question.
Are you thinking of bringing in new genres for music for Waterfest, like rap, hip hop, bring in for college students? I know I was there 2 years ago at UW Oshkosh, so we were big on rap, hip hop. So
Yeah.
have you thought of bringing artists in like Lil Wayne as an example, because he loves the Green Bay Packers? Or have you brought it in the past?
That's
and
the
what does that
prequel.
look like?
You got to be a Packer fan.
we have had some artists that dip into hip hop and rap. Trombone Shorty will be kind of interesting this summer. He'll dip into quite a bit of that stuff. But otherwise on the roster, no. We used to steer away from country because of the Country USA, but we have a core. Our formula is we have a core of fans that kind of expect accessible music that's similar to them. Now, some hip hop is very accessible, and if people would only try it, they'd get a kick out of it. I understand that, but so we're very careful about taking care of and delivering something that's accessible for people. We don't do super hard rock, and we do some blues, but it's got to be fun blues, easy, accessible blues. But hip hop would be fun. I mean, but it would have to. We've had it presented for a hip hop night where you'd have a bunch of artists that would come in on a package. But when I look at it, it's a lot of money and it's a big gamble, and it's a little bit foreign to our core audience. If somebody else wants to produce a hip hop show or something like that, we'd be happy to help give them the resources to take a look at it.
You got time for that, Bo? Yeah, there's an opportunity.
You need the money too, though.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate the question. We're a little more diverse this year than we were in past years. We were pretty much 80s, 90s classic rock. And this year it's a little different. We've got some different stuff in there.
Well, great. Well, I think that's all we're going to have time for today. But I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this and share your insights with the community. And you've been a huge leader in this organization, or in this community and organization with the Chamber for so long. So we just want to give one great round of applause for Mike Dempsey. Thank you.
Thank you.